What is up, guys? Bobgar here, and it is closing thoughts time for, I guess it was like, let me get up to the top, $18, $19 Bogles, 19 tick Bogles, about $100 in paper. And it did really well. Like, it's the way it is. It's matchup dependent, but there's so many decks that can't answer it, and even the decks that can answer it and have good answers to it sometimes just happen to lose. I will say that we lost to it's funny, we lost to one of our few good matchups we had, and we beat a bunch of the matchups I would consider bad matchups for the deck, but worked out okay. I mean, I guess there's no. The last matchup wasn't super good. They do run mainboard Lilianas as well as Hand Disruption, which can screw us up a little bit, but I generally think of that as a relatively good matchup, but did not get there that time. But yeah, let's talk about the winners and losers. What did well, what didn't. I don't know what the losers are other than the lands, because that was what caused us to lose that last game, and I think that was the biggest sticking point. Like, the lands made things hard. Otherwise, most everything worked the way I expected it to. The one thing I might have cut down if I did this again is it felt like I was always sideboarding out Grispoon. Still a really good card, still was very impactful for us in a bunch of places, but it did have the problem where it does a little bit less than the other ones. Doesn't give you toughness, which can be important, and the flying is only sometimes important, and getting to 4 mana is a little unlikely in the deck anyway. I might have run one more land too if I did this again, because there were a lot of times we got no lands in addition to just getting the wrong lands. So those are the two things that jumped to mind. Was there anything else that I would have changed? Not really. Possible we should have run like one less Cartouche of Solidarity or something like that, but I do think this was at least pretty good at, I mean, this one we sideboarded in a lot, good at stopping people's sideboards of wanting us to sacrifice a creature. Maybe if we had fetch lands and Dryad Arbor, it's not as necessary, but still decent. So I don't know. And yeah, overall I like the deck a lot. Obviously, going 4-1 in a league with a budget deck is pretty impressive to me. The lands were the worst part, especially Canopy Vista with the Fortified Village. It's not really a good combo. I mean, it was used in Standard and it was good in Standard, but the problem is, the Fortified Village actually felt better. Like, you'd usually get this to come out untapped when you needed it to in the early turns, because you'd have one other land in play, and any of the other lands works. But the Canopy Vista almost never came in untapped, it felt like. And if those didn't come in untapped, then they weren't very good. It might have just been better to not play the Canopy Vistas and play more forests and plains instead. Unfortunately, most of the other dual lands in this price range were slightly out of budget. They probably aren't in paper. Razor Verge Thicket would be good. The white-green Painland maybe it was in budget. I should have checked. I don't think I actually checked right before the video. It didn't used to be, because Bant Eldrazi used to be a thing, and that used a lot of those, but don't think that's around as much anymore. So those might be a little cheaper now. Those are kind of like the budget options that jump to mind. Sunpetal Grove isn't terrible. It's another budget option you could use. But yeah, and then if you want to go high priced, I brought along this list that did pretty well on the Pro Tour. It was by Thomas Ashton. I don't know who he is, but Thomas Ashton, congrats on getting 24 points and going 8-2 at the Pro Tour. It's pretty good. I think this is just for the modern portion. That's my thought, because they play 16 round total, but they play 6 limited rounds draft. So differences, like I mentioned, Dryad Arbor. Then he runs the same 12 creatures we decided to run. He runs 2 Path to Exiles. Those would have been really nice. They would have helped in, for instance, the one combo matchup that we did happen to win, but I don't think it was a good matchup. Having 2 removals main board seems like a good idea. 4 Ethereal Armor, 4 Rancors. We ran both of those. For Spider Umbra, he went a little lower on the Heine Umbra, which I think is a little weird because I like it more than Spider Umbra, but they're pretty close. Might have just done it for mana reasons because they're almost the same card. 2 Grispoon, so a little bit lower there. 2 Spirit Mantle. Again, I think I went 3, so a little lower there, but he has to make room for the paths. 4 Daybreak Coronet, and then 4 Leyline of Sanctities. These probably would have helped a lot too. We did get, Inquisition / Thoughtseized a lot turn 1, and this prevents a lot of that, which can suck, and then it also obviously adds to our ethereal armor and stops other random shenanigans, like helps a lot against Burn, even though Burn's already a pretty good matchup. So the ley lines are a little hard to make room for, in my opinion, but they're probably good enough just because of how bad Thoughtseize and Inquisition were for us that last match to be worth it. So those are the big differences. And then lands, again, some more pretty big differences there. For Razorverge Thicket, that's the white-green fast land. For Horizon Canopy, this is like the white-green pain land that you can, when you're like late game, you can just sack it for a draw effect. Super good, but super expensive, unfortunately. 3 Temple Gardens, 2 Wooded Foothills, 4 Windswept Heath. So lots of fetch lands, a couple Temple Gardens, couple basics, and then some sweet fast dual lands that have additional benefits. So that's probably about the mana base I'd be running if I could run a good mana base. And there's also, looking at this, it says 19. There's actually 20 lands because of the one Arbor Elf over here. Or Dryad Arbor, rather, not Arbor Elf. So this is a land that's also a creature. And then in the sideboard, he ran 2 paths. Again, if we could have afforded them in this build, we probably would have. Stony Silence is obviously really good. We don't have it. Rest in Peace is obviously really good. Again, we can't afford it. Runs the Seal of Primordial like we do. Runs 1 Spirit Link like we did. And then Gaddock Teague is kind of neat. Non-creature spells with converted mana cost 4 or greater can't be played. That's really strong because one of our worst matchups, as I mentioned, even though we beat them this time, is Tron, I think. And this is a really good sideboard card against Tron. So, I mean, in fact, this really hoses Tron because non-creatures, or it says non-creature spells, so I guess the creature spells with X and their mana cost can still be cast. Well, still, Gaddock Teague is just pretty good. Pretty good against sideboard against most of the Tron decks. Yeah, so thank you guys for watching this week. The thing I wanted to bring up right at the end was I am doing a poll. I should be putting it in the comments of all of these videos. I forgot to mention it in the first deck tech and in the other videos I did, but go to this poll. I'll put it in the description. Vote on the deck that I should do next, which will hopefully be next week, although there's some chance it'll be later than next week if I just don't get it done in time. Yeah, thank you guys so much for watching as always, and I will see you next time.